after deliberately coming off the carnivore diet and gaining weight again by having a high carb diet, this is my progress after week 1 of getting back on the reset. See the results, and I've got some updates about some of the meetups. Hi, welcome back to the channel. Here's for my Carnivore Reset. So obviously, as you would have seen from the previous video, I did three and a bit weeks of going back to the old lifestyle I was, so I could increase the carb intake and see what influence it had on me, with the view of showing people when you do go off the wagon how easy it is to get back on it. So I went all the way up to 99.1 kilos, if you remember from the last video. And I will update you with my weigh-in for this week shortly. But I just want to talk a little bit about that 3-week period, what I noticed from where I was to where I got to and where I'm hoping to head back to. So in that period of time, the most noticeable thing that I had was my skin got very, very dry. I noticed I got more, well, actually I got beard dandruff as well. So obviously underneath the beard, by the way, this is my winter coat. So I'm growing it. You never know, I might even do a sideline in Santa at the rate I'm going, but we'll see. I might take it all off again, I'm not too sure yet. So yeah, my skin was noticeably drier. Again, I don't know whether changing the seasons, but it was really noticeably drier. We haven't had our heating on as yet, so I don't think it's to do with the central heating. I do think it's to do with the diet. I also had, while eating the increased carbs, and now when I say I increased, I didn't go mental, but I did obviously, when the opportunity rose, I went back to how I was. So when I went to the football, there was 3 major football games in that period. Well, not major, for me, major, Ipswich Town. And obviously I drank alcohol rather than having water, so that increased my carbs. A couple of times when we met up, we had something to eat beforehand, so rather than being very meat dominant, I went down the line of, I think I had fish and chips on one occasion. I had sausage. I had ham, egg and chips on another one. So again, not overboard on it, but obviously I had the chips. I didn't have the sauce. I'm not a big fan of sauces and all that anyhow, but I did have salt and vinegar on both of those. I did eat with my wife a few times, and what I called my last supper prior to my weigh-in, we did do a Chinese takeaway. I predominantly ate meat, but obviously they're cooked in sauces, quite a lot of sugar, and really, really noticeable for me, you could really taste the sugar. And interestingly enough, just as I started to go back to the BBBE style, which I'll talk about in a moment and I'll show you, I found that I had increased cravings for sugary things. So I did fancy chocolate more. I wanted some more sweet things. So I do believe what I was doing by increasing the carbs, which obviously all carbs are sugar indirectly, then my body was then switched on and wired to go to that. Other effects I had, obviously when I was eating, I was feeling much more bloated, which is not ideal. Toilet changes to a degree. Without getting too graphic about it, I found when I was on carnivore, you only needed 1/2 wipes after going to the toilet. That was noticeably requiring a lot more. So again, I assume that's to do with the carbohydrate and potential fibres and things like that in there. So basically, without being too impolite, the poo was a bit more sticky. All right, so that's an interesting one. Noticeable drop in energy levels. I noticed in the evenings I was getting tired earlier. I was still waking reasonably early, 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, but I probably didn't have that Tigger energy that I would normally have since being on carnivore. So I noticed these were very noticeable. Cravings of sugar I've touched upon. Oh, that's the other thing is, quite clearly I'd have a meal 10. I still didn't eat a breakfast as such, didn't really fancy a breakfast. But I did find that once I'd eaten in the morning, and I was eating earlier in the morning, probably 9, 10 o'clock-ish at times, I was feeling hungry again mid-afternoon, and I went quite quickly from 2 meals a day to having something to eat later, 3 meals. So clearly there was more hunger. It might be because I was eating less fat, less protein, and having more of a mixed bag, but it was quite clear that my body wasn't being satisfied as much as I had been previously on the carnivore. So there were really noticeable bits for me. So obviously then I decided, right, bang, we're going back on it. So we took the measurement which I reported on in the last video, which was 99.1 kilos. I'll put the other versions of the weights for you up now. And then speaking English. So, and yesterday morning I did this weigh-in, which showed a remarkable drop of 5.2 kilos, or it's 11 pounds in the space of 7 days. So I've gone down to 93.9 kilos. Again, I'll put all the various measurements up there. Now, that sounds amazing in itself. However, let's be realistic. I had increased my carbs. A lot of my fluid carbs had gone up. So I do believe I was holding on to more fluids. So I do associate probably 5 to 6 pounds of that would probably be the fluid. So anyone changing the diet would benefit. But the interesting thing for me was the additional drop. I was expecting to lose 5 or 6 pounds, and obviously I finished with 11. Be interesting to see in the next week how that progresses. So that's the weight drop. Sleep, apparently a couple of times I lightly snored. That stopped again. So I do think that must be my tipping point. I've noticed I do tend to wear a belt on certain trousers, mainly because the trousers I bought got too big for me and I didn't want them too tight to buy some new ones. But I did notice I had moved one belt notch to bigger from when I started it, and already I'm in between that one notch to back to the second notch. But the second notch just feels a slight bit tight, so I'm sticking it on one, but I've noticed that it's a bit loose. So I'm in that in between, so I'm expecting in the next one to back down to the second notch. And wait, so obviously in terms of what I should have done and I forgot to do was do some measurements, but I've started now and I'm not going to go backwards and forwards, but it's noticeable. I've noticed my neck is starting, I've lost that extra chin that I had, although I still got a little bit here. I noticed my thighs are slightly improving, but nothing major to get right home about. But I do feel that the switch. So what I've done, and part of the little experiment I'm doing, I'm trying to do it to prove that you can do carnivore for less than £5 a day, okay, and stick within the BBBE category of carnivore. So that's bacon, beef, butter and eggs. So that's my stable diet, although I did have some pork belly in the air fryer one particular day. And what else did I do? I did something else. Oh yeah, I did find a steak in the freezer. So that's just probably a slight cheat, but I did eat that on one particular day as well. But the majority of my days are like this. So it's really sorry, I didn't think about it when I was recording. I was doing it on my phone while we're actually trying to cook it. And obviously I got the ratio. I'll try and improve it for future ones for you peoples. But my staple was eggs. I was either frying them in ghee or tallow. I did on a couple of days cooked with bacon, and because of that I saved the bacon fat, and then I've used the bacon fat, I've let it solidify, and then I've reused it again. But the majority that I've been cooking in the first week is quite clean, which is this organic ghee or tallow. Nothing else. I've increased my water intake, and I'm trying to not drink water with my meal, but I tend to find that once I've eaten a high fat diet, I'm adding a knob of butter. So when I'm cooking eggs or bacon, I'm actually taking a knob of butter and putting on and letting it melt onto as well. Partly because I like the taste, but I just mindful I want to keep my fat ingoing quite high. I have come across in a local Polish shop some cottage cheese that's very high fat, natural cottage cheese. So I may try that occasionally, but I want to get further down the line before I introduce that. I have been drinking a couple of decaf coffees because obviously when I went back onto the carbs, I was drinking normal coffee again. Admittedly, bullet coffee, so I was putting butter in it, but it was full-blown coffee. I've gone to decaf coffee. I'm going to the butcher's this week to get some beef bones, so I intend to make some bone broth over the next couple of days. So I will then replace the coffees with bone broth. So, and I'll include what I do there. So here's a couple of things, a couple of the meals that I've been having quite regularly. In this one, you'll see I've got 500 grams of ground beef, which is 25% fat content. I tend to do this in the air fryer, so I cut it into blocks. Yeah, I cut it into blocks, and I cut it into blocks, and I air fry it I think everyone does on the air fryer, does the chicken setting, so I do it on the chicken setting, which is the highest setting, for just under 20 minutes. I tend to like my ground beef to be almost raw in the middle, so I tend to cut down the time. But if you want it cooked through, then the 15 to 20 minutes is your time to do it. I tend to drop it down to below 15 minutes. So as you can see here, it's quite pink in the middle. I just like the flavour because I'm quite into raw. I'm not doing raw in this because I don't think anyone wanting to go back to a reset would want to do raw, but I would personally like a piece of raw steak once in a while. Occasionally I put it with some bacon, so it's eggs, bacon, or it's the beef, or sometimes I do a combination of all three. And I've noticed within 3 days of being back on BBBE, I'm instantly back down to one meal a day. It's normally coming in either at lunchtime, but I've noticed as each day's gone on, it's getting slightly later, and I tend to be, like this morning, well today, I've eaten at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So that seems to notice that my satisfaction of the food I'm eating and my hunger desires are pretty much gone. I'm not getting any chocolate or any desire to go back to carbs, etc. So been quite happy with that. Went to football recently, and that was quite challenging because my mates are all aware I've been drinking, and then suddenly I've stopped drinking again, and they were very keen to try and get me on to drink. And it's really weird why people want you to drink and not to drink, but yeah, that's the culture, isn't it? So, but I managed to stick with that quite well. I played poker at a local club on a Friday and Sunday, and I'm quite happy to go back onto soda water or sparkling water there, and I tend to maintain that, and most temptations have gone. So far, so good on that, and I will provide you an update again next week. A couple of other updates or information for you all. Closing down now very much, well not closing down, narrowing down on the second meetup that I'm organising. So I'm involved with the Great British Meetup for next year, the second one we're doing, which is on June the 13th in Somerset at the same location we did it before. Everything's so far going ahead, but obviously we're so far away to go into too much detail, but make a note of the date. We're going to change some of the ideas around it and try and make it a much more community as well as educational. So we'll see how that works out. The committee have got to get together and discuss the final details, but that is that's not penciled in, that's confirmed in 13th of June next year. So make a note for those that are interested in attending or re-attending that one. And we're planning, fingers crossed, we're hopefully confirming on the date shortly. We're looking at the 4th of July, American Independence Day, for the Kent meetup, which is a couple of carnivores that attended the Great British Meetup last year. They have a place which is a small cattle holding, grass-fed cattle site. It's a bit smaller than obviously Sourdown, but it's got its own charm and loveliness. We are hoping to confirm shortly if it's going to be the 4th of July. We're just making sure because Brands Hatch is quite close by, and because of that we just want to make sure it's not going to compete against an event there, because obviously the traffic when they're there is ridiculous, and we want to make it as easy for people to come and go. It will be a day event. We have got potentially 4 fabulous speakers. I don't want to confirm yet because I just want to rubber stamp everything and make sure it's all done. But one of them I'm very, very excited about, and there is a possibility a surprise speaker might come as well because they may be over from the US, but I'm not saying too much about that. It's a case of getting it right and do it. But it's well worth doing. And on the back of that, I'm working on a project at the moment with Stephen Thomas and Lee Copes that may involve, now it's a bit of a long shot and I've still got to firm it up and sort it out, but there may be a little mini meetup either in December or January this year. We've just got to work out the logistics of it all at the Kent location. So you might get a pre-run. And there's a special reason we're setting that up, but I can't reveal that at this stage. But stay tuned because I'm going to show you it will be very interesting for anyone that within, I would say, 50 miles of the location will be well worth going, and it'll be quite exciting what we're trying to put together. But I can't reveal too much at the moment because it's still very much in the pipeline. But I do think it's going to happen. It's unfortunate, but we're going to have to do it in December or January, which is not the best time. I'd like to do it December really to make it a bit of a Christmassy sort of meet up, but it's obviously going to be colder and the weather's going to be a little bit crueler. So, but more will be revealed about that. I'm just doing that as a bit of a taster for you to do that. So, in all fairness, I don't have much more to add. If anyone wants to ask any questions about me deliberately going off and then off carnivore and then doing this reset project to prove to people how easy it is to get back on it. So, because a lot of people worry if they fall off, that's it, they give up. And I'm saying, no, it's easy to reset. So do it. Feel free to ask any questions below because I like to engage with you and perhaps I can cover areas of this experiment. If my rate of return maintains this, then what I thought was going to be a 6 to 8 week project is probably going to be a bit shorter than that because I'm down to 93 and obviously my target is to get back to 85. I do reckon that next week will be a slower decrease because of the adjustment and that, but who knows? This is all an experiment on myself. This is not medical advice. It's nothing like that. I've got some great interviews I'm hoping to line up shortly that will be spread out as well. So I'm trying to get the channel a little bit more active again. It's just that it's just time and you know, it's just what it is. So really appreciate you all. Really appreciate you watching this. And if you haven't already, please subscribe because that helps the channel. We do have a Facebook page which is quite active as well. So please go and have a look at that under the same name, Primal Lifestyle. And I'll keep you updated for next week. Keep primal.